to see how much the people in these meetings are familiar with building information modeling. If you're familiar with building information modeling, BIM, please enter number 1 in the chat. Only 5 out of 100 are familiar with a BIM. Okay, and then my second question is have you had any chance that previously used a BIM in a project, in a construction project? If you're familiar with, if you have used BIM before, could you please press number 2 in the chat?
Unfortunately, I don't think so. There is someone who is adopted BIM in his project. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I hope that I invest a considerable amounts of this presentation on basic and principles of the BIM, and then I'll go through the how to implement step by step, because I assume that maybe the majority of the participants are familiar, but I'm trying to reallocate the times that I wanted to spend on my presentation around the principles of the BIM. Okay, so first I would like to introduce myself. My name is Mojtaba Maghrebi. I'm an associate professor at Firdaus University, Mashhad, in area of construction management and then computer-aided systems. Also, I'm adjunct lecturer at the University of New South Wales. It's the first university in the rank of the civil engineering in Australia since 2017. And also, I'm a co-founder and the manager of the Smart Construction Group laboratory in Mashhad, that we are doing some international and national construction-related computer-aided projects. Later on, I will give you the link to the websites of the laboratory if you wanted to go through and find what we are doing. Okay, I started with the what is the BIM? What is the building information modeling? I would like to express the very simple sentences that comes in a page of the BIM in Wikipedia. It says, so I'm rephrasing the words, is how we could build a project virtually before build it physically. And BIM, if I wanted to talk about the BIM history, BIM, there is an argue that who coined the concept of the BIM. Initially, some researchers believes that Professor Eastman at Georgia University in the US has introduced BIM to the community, but also there is another argument that the BIM comes through Autodesk team, because they have a similar concept for mechanical engineering and then assembly of the parts, complex parts for mechanical design and manufacturing. What the main concept is, if you assume that previously we have a 2D drawings. 2D drawings, we have a, if you wanted to understand what the 2D drawing is, we need to look at the map and the drawing, and based on the knowledge that an engineering has, they can say, okay, we can see that this lines, it's represents the wall, on these two lines parallel represents a window, or similar to the shear walls, ribbons, or whatever is of structural, mechanical, or architectural drawing in for a project. The problem is that for a project, we don't have only one kind of drawings. We have a set of the drawings. We have a similar drawings. We have a totally independent drawings for mechanical MEP. We have for architectural, and we have it for structures. And all of those drawings are kind of maybe very independent. They're not linking together. What the concept of the BIM is, says moving from 2D drawings to 3D drawings. And when we move migrate from 2D to 3D drawings, we don't have lines, we have objects. And when we have objects, we can assign any types of information that we would like to the model. So I believe that previously only for architectural purposes, when they engineering wants to show that what the final spec of the projects looks like, they will use some kind of 3D representative applications such as 3D Max or SketchUps to only show that to the clients or authorities, okay, the projects that we would like to construct looks like this. But it's only for facade or only for interior designs. The BIM says, okay, we don't have any 2D drawings anymore. What we have is all based on the 3D. And so when we have a 3D, the concept that built the BIM to the community is this: we don't need to drawings itself. We need to databases. I want to give you an example. Sorry, if I knew that that you're not familiar with a BIM, I will put the much more principle slides, but I need to talk some on principles that and the basics of the BIM that the audience could follow what I'm going to talk about in the next an hour. So, but I'm more than happy to have another presentation that talk about BIM principles later on. That this very good joint program between Firdaus University of Mashhad and Basrah University could bring up some opportunity to expand work and establish some collaborations. Okay, we wanted to save a wall in a BIM. How we could record this wall in a databases. In the 2D drawings, we have a wall with only 4 points. If we connect these 4 points together, we could see a wall from a top view, 2D view. But in a BIM, we have 8 points, x1, y1, z1, 2, x8, y8, and z8. We have a representative of wall, a 3D walls. If we link these all 8 points together, we could have an object that it doesn't mean anything to the BIM, but we could call it a category of the wall. And so on, if we repeat this process for any of the walls, it would give us, okay, when we wanted to change anything on a wall, by putting only one click, we could see that. But assume that how is difficult when we wanted to change all features for wall in a 2D drawings in a complex projects. And then the simplest things that we have for BIM features is that we have a 3D representative that we could use for any things that I'm going to talk about it in a few next slides. Another thing that is brought up a very, very good opportunity for the BIM is that no longer we could have a physical drawings. We used to use the physical drawings, paper, hard copies, but the next steps that the IT brought us this opportunities that is digital assets comes through the market, and BIM is a digital asset. BIM is not a map, it's not drawing, it's a file. It's databases. And when we have a databases, when we have a digital assets, is much more easier that we could expand it, we could share it, we could work collaboratively on these items. So maybe you could ask, okay, on which stage of a project we could use a BIM? This slide shows that from initial steps, when an idea of the project's ignited, when an authority, when a client started, okay, I wanna build this project. We need an hospital. We need a bigger home. We need a stadium. We need an office, open space office. When an idea started, the BIM could facilitate the process from the feasibility study stages, that how we could automatically quantity take off the materials, we could manage the cost, we could, later on I will talk about the maintenance, and so on, till the end of the life cycle of the projects. When it is the times that we wanted to start, okay, these projects must be demolished because it's over the project life cycle time, and we need to demolish the projects or maybe renovate the buildings to bring us some more time to use this facility. Okay, so what is the in a few next slides I will tell you that how good is the BIM, what is the advantage of the BIM, what is the disadvantage, but first we need to think about what types of information we need to encapsulate in these models, and then when we have a rich databases, how we could extract the information that we need from this project and from these databases. I believe that, let me to ask you some more questions. How many of you guys have had a chance to work in construction projects? If you have done it, so please number 3 in the chat. If you have worked in real projects, real construction projects. If you have done it in construction, please press number 3 in a message bar. Professor, can you hear me?
Sorry, Doctor, can you say again?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Only one person in a chat expressed that has a chance to work in the construction projects. Are the audience are civil engineering background or from a wide range of the backgrounds? Or?
You mean Dr. Riyad Al-Asadi?
No. The rest of the participants.
The rest of the participants.
Yeah. Can you tell me that are they civil engineering backgrounds or they are
most of them architects? Most of
architects.
Them. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay, I'm happy that the Dr. Riz Saeed have done it in a complex projects. Okay, I will go through. The other things that the BIM changes. What I'm talking about the BIM is that the BIM is not the new now in the world. More than maybe, I will tell you the countries around the world that obligate the using the BIM in the projects is obligatory. They have to. they must use BIM in these projects. We have UK and Scotland. We have Singapore. We have mandatory. Hong Kong, New Zealand, and some of the countries that are encouraging the construction community to use the BIM in design and construction and maintenance are Australia. I believe that China has started. Scandinavians are Norway, Germany, French, Turkey, Brazil, Chile, US, Canada. You can see that when they want to work for a government, they have to deliver the documents in digital assets in a BIM models, no longer using 2D and hard copy drawings. What they BIM brought us is that if you look at the left side of the slide, you can see that we have architects, MEP, structural engineering, project management, construction management, facility manager, builder, and then also engineering. And if you've been in a project, you can't find a federated model, a unique model for projects. Any of those parties in the projects, they have their own drawings. They have developed it, they will spend time, they pay money for it, and they are not willing to share with the others. But if you look at the right-hand side, you can see that in the central of the parties, there is a BIM models that we could provide an access for every parties involved in the projects to have access to those information that they need. For example, if we have an MEP could not change those information that regarded to the structures, but we could provide them the chance that they can see their models, and they only put the information that it is from their sides. What the main benefit is that gradually we could build up one single model that exists, rather than just a number of the drawings that every different parties have in a project. So when we have this sort of information sharing, they will not let us to, they allow us to minimize the rework in projects. Why rework? Because they will start at the building structures. Later on, the architecture comes through. Okay, you're not allowed to put these walls with this length because I want to have an opening here with, for example, 2.78 meters. But you have only provide me 2 meters. It doesn't work. Later on, with the exactly same spots in the projects, and the MEP comes through and says, okay, regarding to the fire regulations, this corridor is very narrow. You should expand it for 1.5 meters more, because if we build it with these positions, the fire or council authorities will not approve the projects when we wanted to give permissions to use these projects. Okay. And then I'm trying to wrap the principles, and then I'm trying to move to the step-by-step implementations. I'm hoping that those things so far has helped you to understand what the BIM is. But if you look at the top corner, you can see the 2D drawings. As I said, the first step is the moving from 2D drawings to 3D drawings. When we have from a 2D to 3D drawings, no longer we have lines, we have objects. When we have objects, we can assign any sort of information that we would like to the models, because the BIM is an object-oriented database, as I said, a wall with 8 pointers. When we have an overlay of the 8 pointers, for example, for walls, we could assign a time to this. things. And how it looks like when we wanted to add the lines to this objects, we could have a schedule over the 3D drawings, and it could facilitate how we could easily simulate the construction process. If you can see that the right top hand corner of the slides, you can see that when the 4D modelings, that it comes through 3D plus time, it comes to the 4D. 4D, we could see how the projects could construct gradually over the times. The other main features that we would like to add to the BIM model is a cost. Every decisions that the manager make through the construction process, it depends on a cost mainly. And then the cost is the very, very important factors for decision makers. So we have an object, we could put it in a systems that how much will cost us to build this wall, these corridors, these stairs, this window, and so on, all the objects that we have in the construction site. The other things that also that comes through is the 60. After that, we put the 3D plus time comes to 4D plus cost comes to the 4D. The 60 is sustainability and mainly based on for energy. In an area like Iraq and Iran, that we need to expand and pay a lot of money to provide the desirable environment in terms of the AC. How could easily we could pay analysis for energy process to see, okay, if we have if you use this kind of the walls for these projects, these bricks, this kind of the bricks, it costs us this much to pay for energy. And if we change it, the windows, for example, from these details to these details, the cost of the energy for AC will drop from this much to this much. So it's a kind of the very fascinating tools that we have in BIM. Now we can't limit the full the number of the dimension of the BIM models to the, for example, 70 or 80, or it comes to the ND. Every people could add any types of information to all of those objects. And then the last thing, the dimension that I would like to talk about it is the facility management. If you've worked in a big projects, in a complex projects, the infrastructures, the boilers, the chillers, those ACs need to maintain, and then they demand a lot of money for those process of the maintenance, for piping, all of those infrastructures and MEPs. So when we wanted to started to see that how much those structures needs to be maintained, we need to have a schedule. We need to have a plan for maintenance. So normally, what I'm talking is that it is Iran. I believe that it would be similar to the Iraq. We have a guy that is in charge of the MEP, and if a pipe broken or as an AC have a breakdown, that guy comes and says, okay, call this company, and then they says, okay, those facilities that we have in at this level has some problem. They will come and fix it up. If we miss that guy, all of those information that that guy has, it will gone. What the BIM provide you is this chance that you can encapsulate all of the information that regarding to the MEP to the module. For example, if one pump, a water pump broke down in a building, we don't need it to start to dive in the papers of the projects to find it out what company we have a warranty for that part. You can just easily go through to the parts, click it, and you can see as in a corner, the brochure of the company comes through and say, okay, if you have this, how you can troubleshoot it, or you can have a numbers you can call and says, okay, well, we have a problem for these things. I wanted to go dive to the rest of the technical issues, but I want to hang on now for a few minutes to make sure that all the audiences are got what I'm saying. And Dr. Samir, just advise me how good I'm come through so far, and then how deep I need to express the rest of my presentation. Dr. Samir?
Yes, Dr. Mojtaba, sorry, I can't hear your question again, please.
Yeah, because of what I've found so far is this, that the people are in these presentations are getting familiar with BIM. I spent around more than half an hour to talk about the BIM principles. Just give me feedback how deep I need to go through for the rest of my slides, or I need this again, or spend much more times on this thing.
It's up to you, Doctor. But if you allowed, if you can get more focus on the principle of the BIM, it will be fantastic. Okay. Because as I told you, most of the attendance today is not familiar with the BIM.
Okay, cool. What the other audiences, if they would like to ask any question now, or they wanted to give me any feedbacks, I'm more than happy to listen before I'm going through the rest of my slides. Is there any person that would like to?
If there's anybody, they can write their question in the chat box. Okay.
Okay.
For them, yeah, they can write it in the chat box. So go on, please, and. Thank you so much.
Okay, we have around maximum of another hour. Is it okay?
Sorry, Dr. Mojtaba, what you say?
The times that we have is
the time till I think we have 1 hour more.
1 hour ago.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Cool. The other I'll put it the message box on other screens that. Any times during my presentation, you can ask any question that you have, and you can stop me, and you can ask me to repeat the things that I'm talking about in any slides. Okay, Zainab, we have a two policy for what the Zainab asks is it compulsory or is encouraging? Is compulsory, is obligatory in a few countries. As I said, it's Singapore, Hong Kong, I believe New Zealand, and what I'm talking British. And the other things also very soon in Iran would be compulsory. The standards for modelings are in drafting. I believe that in Dubai is going to be obligatory very soon. Similar for Qatar, and the other countries in the region, Egypt and Turkey, have started drafting the standards. They haven't come through to obligatory so far, but what I can very strong express that in a very, very near future, we're not using the 2D drawings anymore. And if you wanted to prepare yourself to be into the market, I very strongly encourage you to start learning BIM, and it would help you to have a much more advantage when you wanted to get a job opportunity. Okay.
Dr. Mojtaba, you mentioned that the world now reach our level 7 in BIM. Okay. What about the country that you mentioned in the Middle East? What you think? What is the level that they reach it now?
What they call white paper. A white paper is just a country or government realized that they need to provide a roadmap that, okay, in a 10 years, in a 20 years, in a 5 years, we are here, we wanted to reach this point. Dubai, Qatar, Iran, Egypt, and Turkey are those countries that they started working to drafting the white papers. For a few governmental projects in Iran, I believe by end of this year would be mandatory. And we have a mandatory BIM use in Singapore for maybe 10 years. It's not new. And it is a kind of the strategy that the governments pick. Some governments like US, they don't want it to push the market to move toward the BIM, because the companies, the construction and the design companies in US are more ahead of the government. So even though those standards that they have in US are drafted mainly by the companies, or has been started with a request from the companies, but it's different in the UK. UK try to push the companies to move toward the BIM, and that's why they put it as a rules, and they put it, okay, for example, I'm not sure about the numbers that I'm saying, but for example, the projects over £2 billion must have BIM models. It's similar to the Norway, but it is those countries that are pioneer, that are ahead of the rest of the world. But as I can see in global movement, there is no way around. All the countries must go ahead and then reach the point using those stuff. And then for Iraq itself, very encourage all of you guys to start learning BIM, because the number of the big construction and design companies that work in Iraq are mainly based on the countries that I mentioned, that in those countries the BIM is obligatory. So when they work in those countries that the BIM is, they have to, when they come to the Iraq, they bring this atmosphere with them. So if you wanted to work with them, I believe that knowing BIM could help you to adapt and work much more efficiently with them. I hope that I could answer your questions politically.
Yeah, thank you so much. Go on, please.
Yeah. There are other things that we need to...
We have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry for interrupting, but can BIM be used in the concept design process, or it is only for documentation purposes?
No, as I said, I can bring it here, the slide that I show you. Or from the initial steps, when we have nothing's just an idea comes through, we can use BIM. When we started programming, it's the conceptual designs, you can see here. When it started detailed design, when it's to the analysis of the energy, or maybe still we have it tools we can use for BIM, for documentation, for prefabrication and fabrication, for construction, and for operations. For all of those stages, you could use BIM, and we have a wide ranges approach applications. We have two big companies in a world. That one of them is CostX. CostX is this, I believe, the biggest company that introduce and develop for estimation tools. They, in the last, I believe, 3 or 4 years, they started to move from 2D to BIM models. For prefabrication so far, for energy, we have a wide range of the applications that they have adopted the BIM in the applications that how could they use for analysis. And then, yeah, let me, and then the end of the this presentation, I will show you some Google images that you can just get familiar with those tools that I'm talking, what they are. I hope I could answer your questions. If you let me, I will want to proceed to the slides.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. The question is answered.
No, that's okay. The other things that I would like to talk about is LOD. If you wanted to talk to a company, if, for example, a German company come to the Basrah and they have a project and you wanted to talk to them and you wanted to model your projects in a BIM, one of the initial questions they ask you that what the LOD of your models, what the level of the details. The LOD numbers from hundreds to 500s, and those numbers indicate that with that how much of the details you have incorporated in this model. For example, if you see it in a slide, if he models a column with a LOD of hundreds, it looks like this. Only geometry, exterior geometry includes. If you model with a LOD of the 200s, it looks like this. 300s, you incorporate the materials. 350 comes with much more details. 400 looks like an as-built models. If you have a LOD of the 400, it means you don't need no longer to any others presentation. Any others representative of the drawings. With LOD of the 400s, you can have all of those information that you have. Now we have a number of the projects that the Smart Construction Group in Mashhad have model BIMs, and we delivered drawings to the authorities and the clients only in the BIM models, without any single page of the hard copies. We just gave them files, we delivered, we hand out it, we documented that, okay, we handed out this model to you, and this model is just only reference in the construction sites. If they wanted to know any details, they just go through to the BIM models and find it and figure out what the DD of the models are. And if you look at it at the end of the bottom of the slides, you can see that we have a similar perspective for piping. And then the end of the piping, you can see that we have a LOD from 200 to 500. What is the difference between the LOD of the 400 to LOD of the 500 is that in LOD of the 500, we have a maintenance information. In terms of the visual aspects, 400 and 500s are pretty much the same, with these differences that in LOD of the 500s, we incorporate the maintenance information into the model. So, you can ask me, okay, I know that you're not familiar with how we could module the BIM models in the practical, but I say, okay, Mojtaba, what you're saying is just a headache. We easily, everybody in our around us can know that how we could module in a 2D when you started on the 3D, 4D, 5D, and the is just a hassle. We don't like it. But it has been approved that if you moved from 2D to 3D to the BIM models, the cost would be declined. You could easily manage the time. For the time and cost are most important factors. Assume that you wanted to convince a construction manager or a client in a design process when an architect is designing a concept. How is it difficult to convince them that this concept is energy efficient, or is in terms of the time you could construct it much more fast? Is this very difficult because you have only drawings, but we have models? You can use the tools to represent how it works effectively. For estimation, this semester in a projects that I have in a Faculty of Architecture in Ferguson University of Mashhad, I gave them my students to how to use quantity takeoff using BIM. For estimation, I believe that most of you have done so far. When you have a drawings, you need to start counting up every single element in the projects to come up with the cost of the projects. For example, we need to count, okay, we have 24 walls, we have 65 windows, we have, for example, 300 square meters wall, we have 500 square meters ceilings, ceramics, bathrooms, and so far. And you just manually need to count it up, and then times up, and then the unit cost to figure out how much the projects would be cost up. But how easily using the BIM you could use that? You could do so. How? There is a tools. It could be adopted in your models by just pressing a few clicks. It give you how many windows you have, how many walls you have, how many bathrooms you have, how many isolations square meter you need, and so forth. It's one of the easiest advantage you could get from a BIM models. And how it is effectively work, for example, you have a room with 3D walls, 3 walls, and then 2 windows. For any purposes, the architecture design process decided to delete one window. So you have a one window. And it repeated in, for example, 12 stories. And it also repeats in different units in one ground floor. Again, you need to, if you want to do it manually, you need to start it counted up one by one. By BIM, by a few clicks, they give you an updated number of the windows. You don't need it to start it. You just press it. Okay, what the number of the windows that I have? It was, for example, 100. Now I will delete some windows and then just update it. Just press an update. You can see that, okay, 100 drops to 80. Easy. For productivity, how you could monitor the projects. For rework and the waste, I'm more than happy to have another slide in the presentation to go through the details, because for any of those topics, we could talk hours. And then to show how effectively you could use the BIM for improve the productivity in a project. Okay, there is a global study around the world that they try to figure out what are the main advantage of implementing BIM in the projects. And those numbers that you can see in this slides has been published in a report that I believe that this study has been done in a few countries around the world, but you can see that easily you can reduce the errors by half. This is really great. How you could better manage the projects, minimize the rework, how you could understand how we could convince a client or organizations about that these changes in the projects, how we could effectively control the cost, and so on. The rest of the things you can see. Even recently, one of my students developed a BIM a module on a BIM model that automatically can calculate and estimate the safety cost of the projects. I believe that you know that the safety rules are very complex, and if you wanted to figure out how those cost elements are, you need to go through to the codes and then back and then implement it in the projects, estimate the cost, and then again I go in another close of the codes, and then comes back and then calculate the cost. But with a BIM, you don't need it to do anymore. You just click. When you develop a model, just one click and says, okay, just provide me the detailed cost of the safety, and then shows, okay, the PPE, the personal protective equipment are this much, for sites protective is this much, and how effectively and easily you could achieve this information with the least spending time. Okay, from now, in the next half an hour, I will rush because we're in more than an hour of my talk. I talk about the basics. Now I wanted to just briefly mention about how we could implement a BIM in a standardized manner, not just starting the modeling the projects from 2D and 3D and says, okay, is it BIM? No, it's not BIM. What in the next slide you can see, it show you that how the process of the BIM implementations looks like. And typically we have 8 phases for BIM implementations. The first is assessment and needs. Then the second is the request for proposals, response to the request for proposals, procurement or appointment, mobilization, collaborative productive information module delivery, and project closeout. And from in front of the some of those topics, you can see that we have a list of the documents that are obligatory for that. The first things that I could assume that you are familiar with the project management process and the standards. For example, we have a PM bot that for any needs that we have, we need to draft a document. For example, for initial steps of the projects, we need to draft the project scope. But in the project scope, we need to say, okay, what the projects are, the main goals, the budgets, the carryover budgets, the stakeholders, the challenges, the opportunity for these projects, and how we could we could change the project scope, and all of those. We have an initial strategy documents that they call a scope. Similarly, we have for a BIM that we call the BIM brief. Later on, I will show you some examples that how BIM brief looks like and what the components must be included in these documents. Okay. First is assessment and need. For the BIM brief, the client drafted the BIM brief. And in a BIM brief, very, very clearly mentioned, by using BIM, what I'm looking for. BIM can be used for many purposes, but for these projects, I only want to use BIM only for energy assessments. That's it. So when they put it the BIM brief and they put it the energy, the architectures and designers and then the firms understand, okay, they're not interested in the costs. They're only interested on they're not interested in the time. They are not interested in facility management. They're only interested in energy. I've seen in a company in Mashhad that they want to use for BIM only for real estate and reselling the projects and pre-selling the projects. That's it. They want to have some virtual tools. They wanted to provide files, drawings to every client they have in their phone, and they go through and then to see how the projects and when they construct it would looks like. Okay, so in a BIM brief, it is prepared and drafted by clients, but mainly also in some standards provide you some hints. If you wanted to put it in BIM brief, you could include these 6 elements: the project information, what is the project, where is the project located, who is going to invest in the project, who are the potential buyers or operator of the project, the key projects contacts, who is the manager, who is going to be who's in charge of the correspondent, so on. I'll talk about the goals and objectives of the projects. BIM use competency requirements, as I say, it's for energy or something like that. If they have a very, very specific requirement, for example, we want to have a BIM, but also we wanted to have a construction simulation as well. What types of the simulation, what the safety purposes, what it says, and how deliverables. Okay, go on the model, my projects in a BIM. How could the project would be delivered? How at the end of the day, how would the projects looks like? How can I see that? We wanted the engineering comes to my office and says, okay, Mojtaba, it is your BIM models. How can I check the features of the projects? For example, one simple thing is that, okay, I wanted to have a architectural design with an LOD of 300, but the MAP of the project with an LOD of 350. What are the document standards? For example, for LOD, we have a document that has been introduced by Smart Building. They call BIM Room. Later on, I will put it in the chat when I find the links. It's around 400 or 500 pages. So LOD of the 300s for walls looks like this. You need to include these elements in your walls that we could call it LOD of 300 or 350. Just I want to find it in the Google and then provide you to, for example, to see how BIM standards looks like. Okay, audience, I encourage you guys to have a look at this page, how the documents, how for example, on the first page, you can see that what they put it for LOD, level of the form, how for estimating and scheduling is for data analysis, for lean, and for horizontal projects for as a road or piping. And information must be included in the big. Okay. Maybe you could ask that. Okay, we could confuse. Can you show us then how a BIM brief looks like? It looks like this. It's prepared by who, from which company, what the dates, when it has been revised, and the rest of the information, and then all of those things. Okay, the concept designs must be for the date, and at this date, estimated calculations, that date, and then do we need any meetings, and if you have a meetings, how long it will take, and who are going to invite to the meetings. And then you can see the disciplines has not been defined yet. Is it this was designed by structure design, by engineer, by architectures, by MEP, and who are the company in charge of, and then the contact persons, and then the emails you can see here. And what the project's goals has been pressurized. Here you can see what the goals are. We have a similar things in the project management. When we talk about the goals, maybe it's not tangible. But for example, a very, very simple example. A client comes to your office and says, okay, I want to have a very nice building. How you could quantify how nice it looks like? Nice is different from the two person perspective to each other. Maybe you want to go shop with your brother and you says, okay, I wanted these t-shirts, it looks like very smart, but the other, your brother says, okay, this is a very ugly t-shirts. How we could quantify it? Is it the t-shirt is nice or it's not nice? The project, the t-shirt exists, it doesn't change. But the two person from two different perspectives look at the one single objects and they have a different interpretations. When this these concepts comes to the BIM and BIM models and then BIM delivers things is much more difficult to quantify. So look at these slides. For every goal that we have, we try to provide a metrics. Okay, if I wanted to have a big room, big rooms means to adapt with these standards. Or simple, I'm not architectural. If you're laughing off my architectural example, I sincerely apologize. But for example, I want to have a very nice bedrooms in the buildings in terms of the architecture, not in terms of the BIM. And then I have a kind of experience for myself. In the meetings, the guy says, okay, we have a bedrooms for parents in a unit with an area of around 20 meters, 5 at 4 meters. But the guy says, okay, it's a very short bedrooms. But in terms of the general perspective, it's not a short. 4 plus 5 is good enough. That guy says, at least I expected double size. So you need to, we need to have some kind of tangible metrics that when the architecture design the bedrooms, they know that the client would accept it. Similarly, for example, I will give you that with a higher priority, the goals is optimization of the design, improve stakeholders' engagement. How? Use 3D models as a visual communications. No longer deliver the projects with a 2D or as a render of the 3D max, for example, view of the projects. Give them the 3D works options. And who is going to use design authorities and through the design reviews. And you can see the rest of the example in the slides. Because of the lack of the time, I'm not longer going to spend much time in it. But, and then again, you can see that for the BIM use, when we have value, who is going to responsible, architecture, structure, MVP, and fires, what the values, what we are thinking is the high, and competency requirements to implement, ability to create, develop BIM modules, and the design and construction experiences before the project structured. And again, for the client, is the value of the high. But you can see that the value is different. For example, high margins of different parties involved in a project. For a BIM templates, again, we have a project deliveries. What we wanted to deliver with a what format. If I wanted to talk about the standard formats of the BIM, I need at least an hour times to express how it looks like. But in one simple sentences, we have for the pictures we have a standards. How? We have a JPEG file. JPEG file, everybody around the world accepted. So when they accept to export a raw pictures to the JPEG formats, everybody around the world don't need it to have a translate the JPEG file. You can easily see the JPEG file in your phone, in the web, in your computer, in any software that you use for your design process. When you import a JPEG file, it's easy. But if you go through the JPEG file is a batch of the numbers. And the batch of the numbers for RGB, 3 layers of the colors, and they come through the matrix. For example, we have a pictures of the 640 to 860. It means that we have a matrix of 600 pixels and 860 pixels. If you times it comes to the 550,000 pixels, but just very not high resolution pictures. And for every single of those pixels, we have 3 numbers, RGB, red, green, and blue, 3 main colors. When they have 3 colors overlaid together, we have that big matrix. We could construct the pictures. So you can just assume that how it's difficult to build a simple electrical version of the pictures. It is similar for a BIM. Unfortunately, so far we are not getting that much information for the BIMs. There is facilities around the world. They are trying to standardize the BIM modules. So far, the Revit modules for Autodesk, they have their own file formats. For SketchUp, they have their own. For Graphisoft, they have their own. But they are trying to hand over similar subjects together, but it's not compatible at the moment. But there is a trajectory that maybe in a few years we have a standard format of the files that we want to have for a BIM modules. I can see one of those standard formats is IFC. IFC is they call it Industry Foundation Class. I'm not going to talk about it at the moment because I believe it's not maybe interested to the audience. The second step is request for proposals. The client started to say, okay, if you wanted to model my projects with a BIM, what your ability are, what the main patterns you have, what the rest of the things, and they announce it. The companies, they come through and they okay. I believe that the one person has stopped my presentation. Professor Hamad, can you assist me?
Yeah, I will call to manage this problem. أستاذ كيان موجود؟
Can you see my slides?
No.
نعم أستاذ. نعم أستاذ حميد.
شنو اللي صار؟ اختفى البرزنتيشن مال الأستاذ وظهر البرزنتيشن مال شخص آخر يعني قطع.
What about now? Can you see that?
No, I can't see.
حميد ما اسمعك واضح. شلون أستاذ حميد؟
العفو أستاذ، الإظهار مال الباوربوينت مال الأستاذ اختفى وقطع شخص معين وأظهر البرزنتيشن إله.
نعم.
What about now? Can you see this?
Yeah. Now it's okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then it's a response. The clients comes. the companies comes and then started to drafting the response to request for proposals that the client mentions. And then now is kind of, again, we need to have some tangible metrics to realize, okay, how looks like a response. They at least they need to cover 4 metrics: what they approach to modules, what their standards, how they wanted to modules, what the steps they have, what the capability they have in terms of the hardware, software, and human resources, and the capacity. They have enough room for this space, or they are already over. They have too many things on the tables, and they can't. They have already trying to modules, for example, 10 BIM 10 projects, and they can't start it. There's no any much room to accept another projects, and the competency. If I wanted to deliver the projects on a LOD of the 350, how it looks like? How I wanted to do that? Okay. And then how we could evaluate, and then again, because when a client wanted to decide which company I wanted to pick to deliver these services, they comes through the bid and the costs. I can't model this project with $1,000. Another company comes through and they says, okay, I can't do only at least with $10,000. We can't judge only on the prices and the costs, because maybe the $1,000 is kind of rubbish, or another side, maybe the $10,000 is over the budget and is just really expensive. How could they evaluate? I believe that there is a kind of standards in any projects to quantify that how much a service worth. And the other for competency, then how they wanted to, and then says, I would, because of the lack of the times, if the professor allow me, I wanted to skip those slides. I could, because still will have many more slides to go. And then again, when they comes, maybe you can ask me that how the draft looks like. So you can see, I'll put it as an examples. Okay, we want these goals, and the company comes through so how I could achieve these goals. For evaluation, again, is the same. Again, you can see that how they wanted to deliver the projects, with which formats, which version of which platform and package I want to use. And let me go through. Now is the time that we wanted to appoint and select a person that could do this project for us. And after that we decided, we go to the Lego, the contracting, and then we pass the lead times. It's the mobilization time. Mobilization times is it's kind of preparations. Okay, now is okay. So started projects, how they wanted to start, how they wanted to go through, and then they receive the drawings, how they wanted to execute the process, how they wanted to plan for this execution process. And during the execution process, again, you can see that the number of the features that needs to be answered. At this stage, because of the times, I only wanted to talk about the quality control. Most of you guys are architects. If you look at the drawing of the projects in terms of the architecture, you can see, okay, it's not good quality. How you express that is a good quality or is not good quality. In terms of the experience, if you look at it as projects, you can see, okay, with these features that we have, we can't say it is a good quality or is not good quality. But for a BIM, because it is a challenge, it comes through the claims, You need to quantify it. If we wanted to look at the BIM model to say, okay, is the good BIM modules, or how we could control the quality of the modules, not only paying the money for the modules, we need to have some references to see, okay, for example, we have a Windows with these features. In the models, we only have a perspective of the Windows. All of those features that it was very interested for us is not included in the BIM. For a level of the projects, we have projects in Kish Island in Iran. It was on a offshore, and we have a different levels from the sea levels to the levels of the main structures was to be established, and also we have a different kind of the piping in a beach side. How we could define the different levels. If we have for example, we have a 2 meters difference height differences, how we could incorporate in the models the informations that we capture from the site to the BIM models. And you can see that how the project information looks like. Again, for any of those metrics, I'll have a few slides. I will very quickly, I will go through it. Later on, we could discuss, but I don't think that the times allow me to elaborate them in more details. For example, just for project information, as example, I have for all of this. What needs to be included, how it looks like, and then for projects goals, how to put the projects, and then how we wanted to informations, to manage the informations. Another concept that is very important in the BIM is CDE, Common Data Environment. In a very simple sort of the CDE is looks like as a Dropbox or Google Drive or OpenDrive. Is in a cloud service that you could store the files, and you can have access to the files to any person around the world that you want by one click. It's the simplest sort of the CDE, but it's much more complex in a BIM because you don't want it to have given an access to everybody around the world to dive in your model and do whatever that you want. And because one person can come and crop your model, you need to have a log to say, okay, for example, Mojtaba have access to these files at Wednesday at the 10 a.m. till 11 a.m. and Mojtaba has done these changes to this model. It needs to be controlled because of the responsibility, and then how much money that you spend to build their models. Again, let me skip to the slides. And again, we also another thing that comes through to the BIM is MDD, model descriptions documents. It's not a common in Iran. I believe that it most likely would not common in a western side of the Asia, similar to the Iraq. But we don't have an MDD. MDD is a document that say, okay, if I design your structures, or if I design your building, if I design your interior, my thoughts comes from these principles and ends to these drawings. That a client, before diving to the drawings, needs to read these reports to understand where you come from, what is the principle, what the standard you use, what is the main objective that you have, and how you did it, what's the persons, and how you could play with these models. For example, you have a row of picture files that is not a JPEG, but you can say, okay, this file can be viewed by this viewer. When you deliver the file to the client, and you give them how to work with the file, they could see the pictures. Again, you can see that how the project MDD looks like. We could have some templated that, for example, you can see we have 8 templates drafted by government. For these projects, number 2, 3, 5, 6, and 7, and 8 has been ignored. It's not being included in MDD. Now, again, we have some notices how you can work with these models. For the BIM use, again, similarly, I'm talking about those lists of the 8 items. And again, for collaboratively, how we have meetings, for example, frequency for BIM requirement kickoff, just only one-off. For some of them, maybe after the milestones or weekly or monthly into design. Also for coordinations, the accuracy of the model and tolerance that we accepted, you can see that how is it has been mentioned here. For a very, very preliminary stage of the projects, we could accept it by 100 millimeters, but when we come through the detailed design, it would be limited to 25 millimeters. Well, maybe it was my last slide, but I still have another few more slides that will very quickly skip it. But try to have a responsibility matrix for your BIM models. You can see that all of those abbreviation has been listed here. And when we have, for example, architectures, which part of our formations can be included, who are in charge of, who can have only view the models, who can only change the model, who can save the model, who can extract information, and so on. And when you have these types of documents and draft, it would very, very reduce the clashes that you have during the processes. Again, how is going to review, how is going to approve it, who is going to archive the models, how is going to send it off, how going to draft it, all of those things that you can see. Yeah, it is the similar things. I believe that, let me talk about these things now. I promise that is my last slide. Clash. We have drawings of the architectural, similar sort of drawings. We have a structural drawings and totally independent. Electrical, piping, fires, and you have a bunch of different sorts of independent drawings. But when you wanted to start building a project, in a month of the 2, you realize that a duct of the ACs comes through and passes through their walls, shear walls, or pipings are very dense in this area of your living room that you reduce the height of the ceiling. But you can't do that because of, for example, fires and stuff. Or, for example, these types of the piping has been ignored in these roads. One of the simplest advantage of the BIM is the clash detections. You can overlay all of those objects in one modules, in a federated modules. And by one click, it says, okay, you have a clashes between this pipe and these walls. And before you started the projects, you can resolve these problems. Not waiting that you construct the shear walls and you don't have any rooms to pass these ducts. Professor Hamid, I believe that I'm talked more than enough, and I'm more than happy that you guys spent having me in your seminar, and I'm hoping that I have delivered a good presentation for you, and then it's my pleasure. It was my really big pleasure that I'm in part of a joint program between Basrah University and Kurdish University of Mashhad.
Dear Dr. Mojtaba, thank you so much for your richness lecture and the valuable information that's included in it. And I'm so happy to get this opportunity to listen to your lecture and get more details and idea about BIM and how it's work and how it's including in the project. Thank you so much for your time. I give the time now for the student and the attendees to, if they have any question or comment about your lecture.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, Dr. Mojtaba.
It's my pleasure.
Sorry, Dr. Mojtaba, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, my name is Ahmed Nasser. The question about, first of all, I have, it can be understandable that BIM is not only a group of tools to presenting our project. It's a whole system covering all the project assets and also covering, going through all project life cycle from design, construction, operation, and also demolishing. My question is about the type of management we need to guarantee the follow-up of the process, and what is this? What is the most applicable type of management we can adopt in this BIM to be to ensure the flowness of information and collaboration and contribution responsibilities between multidiscipline?
Okay. Ahmed, it is a very valid concern that you raised. No one in a world has a very solid answer for your questions. Because, again, if you get familiar with the project management process, there is a wide range of the project management approaches. And any of those managers or standards behind the managers or organizations types claim that you are the best. Take this an aside, it was a similar approaches for the BIM. They are not handing together so far. If you look at it, there's some BIM standards. When they come to the project management concern, they don't like to be involved. They just answer in a few sentences or maybe a few paragraphs. They will not give you a clear instructions. Okay, if you wanted to implement BIM professionally, you need to have a managerial organization, as you said. But they are not answering these questions clearly so far. But I'm not going to have a similar approach to their standards. What I've, based on my experience in Iran and in the rest of the world, in some countries that I work, even if you have a clear objective, doesn't matter with any sort of managerial system that you have, the BIM would be beneficial. But I'm hoping in the near future, the project manager style and the BIM implementation styles comes through the one whole holistic systems that we could design. Okay, each modules in a managerial systems have a link with a BIM, and if manager needs this information, he needs to come through these procedures and obtain this information from the BIM. We don't have it so far in the world, but I'm hoping in the near future we could have it.
Thank you, Doctor.
Pleasure.
Any other question? Comment? You can write your question in the chat box if you like. If you don't want to say, if you're shy to say it.
Don't be shy, one. Most of you are the architect.
Yeah, I mean,
the architects are not shy.
No, it's not working at all. So, Dr. Mojtaba, I want to ask something, please.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, thank you. I am architect and I am interested in in heritage and historical building. So I want to ask about something that you haven't mentioned in your presentation. It's missing in your presentation. I don't know why. It's about HBIM. What is the area of the HBIM that working in, and what is the limitation of the HBIM? Is it just about documentation and maintenance process, or something else, please?
Yeah, happy that you are working in HBIM. Yeah, it has been. I've seen some sort of the countries that they started for working on a heritage and for mainly for maintenance, and they have their own tools. They're not very generative in a ordinary design process. For example, for I believe that you have seen it before, is the laser scan. And another concept is the scan to BIM. They come through the heritage site, and they put it at the laser scan and try to capture a point cloud. And based on the point cloud, they try to reconstruct a facade of the building. And over the times, they repeat this observation to see if there is a kind of the changes or any kind of sort of aspect of those heritage needs to be maintained. Is because the heritage is not the area of my work. Those things that I mentioned is just what I've seen in the papers. And I'm hoping that you could, in the near future, expand it in a heritage site in Iraq, hopefully, very soon.
I hope so, and I'm working in this specialized, and I hope we got the opportunity to document it, or maybe to build modeling for the historical building, because it's damaged day after day, and it will be disappear, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mojtaba. Can I ask? Is there any another question, please?
I put in the clash detection here. If you just Google it, you can see what I meant for clash.
Yeah, clash detection. Yeah.
And also, I put it the websites of my research laboratory. The moment is in a Persian, but you can see that the projects we have by pictures.
Thank you so much. And if you can share your email, because maybe someone want to contact you about something, it will be wonderful if you share it.
Here's my email.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to find an area or room to collaborate with you guys. And I have a very good student from Basrah. He's at the moment working with me, and I'm hoping I could expand it, my network with all of you guys in Basrah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mojtaba. The time is over now, and I want to thank you, and many thanks for your time and for your lovely session, and hope we can meet again.
Thanks, Dr. Samir, for having me here. Again, sorry for delaying starting the meeting. And I'm hoping all of you guys and your family be safe in this pandemic that we have in the world. And with lifting the restrictions, we could have you in Mashhad, and also I'm more than happy to be in Basra soon.
Thank you. Wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Say bye.
Goodbye. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.
السلام عليكم أستاذ حميد.
عليكم السلام. عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. شكرا جزيلا.
موافقين بالبرزنتيشن دكتور.
شكرا جزيلا لكم، توفيق للجميع والحمد لله والشكر. احنا الهدف انه طلابنا واساتذتنا يستفادون من العلوم اللي قاعد تجري بالعالم واللي التطور اللي قاعد يصير، وان شاء الله كل الخير. شكرا جزيلا لحضرتك
ان شاء الله الخير
بجهودكم في اداره.
بالتوفيق ان شاء الله استاذ، بالتوفيق ان شاء الله. مع السلامه.
شكرا جزيلا للحضور، شكرا جزيلا لجميع الحضور، ونتمنى انه تكونوا قد استفادتوا من هذا المحاضره، وان شاء الله اكو محاضرات اخرى قادمه نعلمكم بها لاحقا. شكرا جزيلا للجميع.
شكرا. مع السلامه.
مع السلامه.